Let's go to our panel now. In Mexico City is Federico Lamont. He's a journalist with El Sol de Mexico newspaper. Also with us is Jaime Lopez Aranda Trewartha. He's a security analyst and former Mexican government official. Gentlemen, I thank you for joining us on the Newsmakers. Jaime, let me start with you. After the tragedy, people want answers and they want to hold someone to account. Who do you hold to account with a tragedy like this?
Well, there's a lot of blame to go around. I mean, on many levels. It's hard to pin it on a single person because it was an institutional failure. The people on the ground probably acted, the soldiers and the federal police on the ground probably acted correctly, being circumstances. But the question remains why they were not given adequate support or why they were not given backup in a timely fashion. There's also to blame, in a larger scheme, Pemex, because of the protocols and the series of mistakes that it has made in its regarding security. You could also place the blame on the local government, the state government and the municipal government that have allowed these activities to continue unimpeded for a long time. There's a lot, this is a huge illegal market there. You could fault the federal government as a whole for having been implementing anti-oil theft strategy that, clearly hasn't produced any visible results and still has caused a fuel shortage. There's a lot of blame to go around. It was an institutional failure on all levels.
Okay.
Of course, you could also blame to some extent the people who actually rushed towards the fuel for, the blatant disregard for their own safety.
Right. Okay. So institutional failure. Let's take this, in two layers, right? So we'll discuss the deeper layers in a moment. But Federico, would you accept that on the surface layer that police, or the army rather, failed to cordon off the area and they might have saved lives, and also the oil company probably should have stopped pumping oil once they knew there was a breach? Can we at least admit that both those things were wrong?
Yeah, because as far as I'm concerned, they weren't informed at least 6 hours before the explosion. And the monopoly, Pemex, is to be blamed because in 2009, they delivered to the governors and mayors its security map. And that is why some governors who now are indicted and wants to be extradited to the United States have that security route. That is since 2009. So Pemex monopoly is to be blamed, and probably the army as well, because they couldn't handle the whole story. And that is why at least 500 people got close to the pipeline and they all knew what was going to happen. And so army and both local and state government are to be blamed, but not this current government. I'm talking about Felipe Calderon governor, his presidency, because they delivered that security map to the three state level of government.
Jaime, when we look at government responsibility, this current government saying we've inherited a mess from the previous government, is that fair?
Well, it's a political stance. I'll give them that. You have to, pretty much every single government in Mexico has inherited a mess from the previous one. And not only in Mexico, Latin America and around the world. That's just kind of the thing you do. But it contradicts itself in two important manners. The first one is after the electoral victory, what the current government said, the incoming government then, what they said was that they appreciated the economic stability, they appreciated the conditions that they were being handed over the country. It was a long transition with designated people for that. So to call yourself surprised after all those months, that's kind of disingenuous. On a deeper level, on a more important level, it's like they're basically doing, for the most part, what their predecessors have been doing. Federico mentioned the Calderon administration, also the Peña administration. The anti-oil theft strategy of Lopez Obrador is practically indistinguishable from theirs, except for closing down the pipelines, which again caused its own problems. So I would say that more than a fair characterization, it's a political one. At some point there was this major crisis in Mexico, the economic crisis, and the president at the time said, you know what, they gave me they handed over the economy with me, hanging by a thread. And his predecessor basically said, yeah, but I didn't cut the thread. It's always hanging by a thread. So if you're aware that there is there are major problems and that there are major obstacles, which pretty much everybody who has ever been in the government knows that there's always major obstacles and there's always major problems, then perhaps you should be more careful with your approach.
Right. Okay, so let me ask Federico. Federico, is that a fair point from Jaime, that it's an easy cop-out for this government to say, well, the mess comes from the previous government, they just handed over the reins to us and we're just getting our feet under the desk? There has been a transition. They have had an opportunity to try and fix this. Why blame the previous government?
Because it has a date. Let us back to 2002 under President Fox's administration. He knew what was happening inside Pemex, and particularly with its union workers. In 2002, there's a pipeline in Tula which was stolen from the drug smugglers, because those who have been stealing gas or fuel from Mexico's oil monopoly belongs to the gangs. And so the Mexican government knew about that in 2002. That's exactly what President Lopez Obrador has stated yesterday during his press conference. He turned us back to 2002, and he says at least $25 billion has been stolen by the drug leaders, and they belong to what we call huachicoleros. So when President Lopez Obrador was in his political campaign, he promised to the people that he was going to stop this turning of fuel thieves all around the Mexican Republic. And though he never established a date, probably by his end of his tenure, he's going to crack down all of those thieves who belongs to different gang cartel leaders. There are two possible thief leaders, one from Tamaulipas and the other one from the state of Hidalgo, and those are to be blamed due to this stealing of fuel all around the Mexican Republic.
Okay,
well, they have names.
Okay, interesting. I want to bring in Jaime. So, and sorry to interrupt you, right, Jaime? So you have the leadership making that distinction between those who are the cartel leaders of this illicit operation and this illegal oil siphoning, and the ordinary people who were blown up. And we have President Andrés Manuel Lopez Obrador saying, we have the conviction that the people are good, that they are honest, that if they arrived at these extremes, these practices, it's because they were completely abandoned by the state. And so he refused to victimize those people. Would you agree that that was extremely important for him to do that?
Yes, I mean, it was pretty much the only appropriate option he had. I mean, going back to, right now, President Lopez Obrador has gone back to the, back in the campaign, he used this phrase that became like this catchphrase, right? Abrazos no balazos, which translates roughly as hugs not getting shot or not being shot. Basically, what he said was that his presidency was going to emphasize the social, the more soft side, trying to bring the people into the fold, not using as much, coercive force. So going back to that, in the face of more than 80 people getting blown up, who are clearly not part of any criminal organization, it was the only appropriate option, and I think it was the right call to make. Having said that, it does show the limits or the inadequacies of his strategy. Because as Federico was saying, he was saying correctly, of course there are big criminal groups behind this. Some of them are identified, some of them are not. Some of them are connected to Pemex, some of them are not. But at the same time, what we saw in the explosion, in this huge tragedy, was not the organized crime, the abstract organized crime with high-profile names. What we saw was actual people, civilians, people from the street getting blown up. And they were participating not in the huachicoleo as we tend to simplify. They were just they were trying to take advantage of an opportunity to, basically to steal. But in a Mexican way, we would say, they were stealing, but just a little bit. This social component, this social tolerance for this sort of low-level petty crime is a major issue now.
Federico?
Those are people who are on their poverty level. They earn, those who work close to last Friday pipeline, they earn at least $3 a day as a wage for living. So they're not, we can't take them as vulgars, as thieves. They're people who want to survive by taking gas, and that's what they have to take to their own homes. But some of them, not the majority, probably might have links with the smugglers. The smugglers have been settled at the state of Hidalgo for 20 years. Not only there, Veracruz, Tamaulipas as well. And those smugglers wants to buy the fate of people with 2,000 pesos a day. So I'm talking about $80. So that's the main problem. How are you going to stop this spreading of oil theft if people don't have a way to survive? That's the main issue. And today's government is doing what it can in order to solve that big problem.
Jaime?
But what I'm sorry to interrupt. This is one point. This is a cost-benefit analysis. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody's asking the Mexican government to stop people who end up with 20 gallons of gas. Honestly. Not only, it's not about them being poor, because poverty, 40% of the country is poor. Most of them are not involved. The people in Hidalgo, as you were saying, Federico, they live in the midst of a gigantic black market. They knew they would be able to sell this gasoline because most of them don't have cars. It's part of being poor in Hidalgo at this point. But I think this is an interesting point. Nobody's asking to get these guys, to put these guys in jail. Some people are, but those are morons. To be completely truthful about it. This is not the kind of oil theft that the strategy is supposed to fight. And that was clear from the get-go because of the people, the military they sent to the site. They were not equipped for crowd control. They were looking for a huachicolero band. They would decide to track down a huachicolero band. And instead they ran into a crowd. But in terms of the strategy, the overall strategy and looking forward, it's like, we should not be going after petty theft. Not only because they are poor or because they are the good people. That's a different debate, I would say. But because petty theft, chasing petty theft like this is much more costly. Too costly. We just saw it. Going after, that was supposed to be, the whole event was supposed to be about civil protection. It was about safety. It wasn't about law enforcement. It couldn't have been about law enforcement. We can't afford to be going after the little guys. No country can.
So, Federico, we have the government of President Lopez Obrador announcing a community development program, saying they want to address the root causes, they want to stop illegal industry, they want to go after the cartels. Is the reality basically that tragedies such as this one will continue to happen unless and until Mexico reforms the whole society? You have to stop corruption, you have to stop poverty, you have to fix everything to fix this thing. Is that the reality?
Well, according to what President Lopez Obrador have stated during his last political campaign, at least $90 billion, and according to the World Bank, are stolen or were stolen by the other administrations. I'm talking about Peña Nieto, Calderón, and Fox. That's exactly what Lopez Obrador has stated. And yesterday, during his press conference, he announced a big social program that will provide not only money, but the tools for those empowered people to survive. So it's amazing what the former governors or the former presidents have done to Mexico. There is one single president who has been blamed to earn $25 billion when he finished his tenure. So what can you do with a country that has at least 80 million people who lives under poverty level?
Okay.
And with those
so let me get a final response from Jaime, because you made the point, right? Is the real problem here, Jaime, that previous administrations, rather than poor people siphoning oil, the real problem is previous administrations have siphoned the nation's funds? That's it, no more, no less.
No, I mean, it's way more complicated than that. I mean, of course there has been corruption. But, I mean, and this is something, I understand the point. I mean, that's why Lopez Obrador got elected with such a wide margin. I mean, that's where his legitimacy comes in. I mean, there were like huge blunders, enormous corruption cases, very high-profile cases. And yeah, I mean, that was a driver for the election. It was a correct driver for the election. Now, this is government. This is different. What the President Lopez Obrador and his cabinet is, I mean, what they're realizing is that corruption takes a lot of forms, and coming up with big numbers is not public policy. And this is the main problem. I mean, of course, you have to do things. Of course, you have to root out corruption. I love what you said about reforming the whole Mexican society. Yeah, I think that's an universal aspiration, I think. Mm-hmm. But in practical terms, you have to go down to the ground and actually take concrete steps. Right. One of the concrete steps that Federico was already referring, I mean, giving money to people who are below the poverty line, who might be at risk of becoming involved in criminal activities. Yeah, that doesn't work. It's a good thing to do. I mean, let's be clear. It's a good thing to do. People deserve to have these transfers. But that has not diminished crime anywhere.
Okay. Well, it's regrettable that it took for almost 100 people to die for us to have what I think is a really important conversation about the very state of how Mexico is run. And I look forward to having more conversations with you two gentlemen in the future. Federico Lamont and Jaime Lopez Aranda Trewartha, thank you very much for joining us.